Every 4 years, the world gathers for the grand festival known as the Olympics. This time, the event is set to unfold in the romantic city of Paris, France. Hello, I'm Peter Bind. In anticipation of the 2024 Paris Olympics, today's story focuses on the history of Korea's sports diplomacy. Some might wonder, what sports have to do with diplomacy? While it's often said that sports transcend borders, sports frequently reflect political dynamics and diplomacy more than one might expect. A prime example is ping-pong diplomacy between the United States and China. In 1971, amidst the Cold War, the two countries had no diplomatic relations. With just a 2.5-gram ping-pong ball, the relationship between the two countries began to thaw. At the World Table Tennis Championships in Nagoya, Japan, the interaction between national teams led to the Chinese government inviting the US team to visit China. This gesture initiated a friendly atmosphere, paving the way for President Richard Nixon's visit to China in February 1972, and eventually the establishment of diplomatic relations in 1979. Sports diplomacy refers to diplomacy through sports games or surrounding sports event venues. Hosting international sports events like the Olympics is the highlight of sports diplomacy, as it not only elevates a nation's prestige, but also enhances its presence in the international society. Today, we'll explore Korea's sports diplomacy through its history of hosting international sports events. Which major international sports events have been held in Korea? The first Olympics hosted by Korea was the 1988 Seoul Olympics. What comes to mind when you think of Korea today? The film Parasite, BTS, and Son Heung-min. Korea is now associated with a variety of images, but it was not the case before 1988. People barely knew about Korea. If not, they associated it with war, division, and orphans. The 1988 Seoul Olympics played a crucial role in changing these perceptions and introducing Korea to the world. Hosting Korea's first Olympics was challenging. Discussions about hosting the Olympics began in earnest in 1978, following the successful hosting of the 42nd World Shooting Championships in Korea. Encouraged by this success, Korea became confident in hosting a large-scale international event like the Olympics. In 1979, the mayor of Seoul announced the city's plan to bid for the Olympics. However, that announcement met with mixed feelings both at home and abroad. Hosting the Olympics is symbolic of strong national power, and it requires massive economic resources. In 1979, Korea's per capita gross national income was around $1,700. Moreover, Korea needed to build large-scale infrastructure from stadiums, airports, lodging to transportation. Naturally, people were skeptical, wondering, can Korea host the Olympics? Nevertheless, Korea didn't give up. Korea meticulously prepared for the bid. The turning point came at the International Olympic Committee session in Baden-Baden, Germany. Korea's efforts bore fruit at the Korean Pavilion. As soon as visitors entered the pavilion, which was about 100 square meters in size, the first thing that caught their eyes was the model of the Seoul Olympic Stadium. Next, the exhibits that showcased traditional Korean culture and the developed image of Korea in the 1980s captured attention. It was an exhibition where visitors could fully feel the charm of Seoul. Additionally, the graceful appearance of the guides dressed in hanbok, traditional Korean attire, became a hot topic among visitors. The pavilion gained more popularity after visits by world-renowned Korean sports stars, Berlin Olympic gold medalist marathoner Song Gi-jung and football player Cha Bong-gun, who played in the German Bundesliga. Thanks to them, the Korean pavilion was crowded with visitors throughout the exhibition period. The positive feedback culminated on September 30th, 1981, when the IOC session announced 52 to 27 Seoul. Seoul had dramatically won the bid to host the Olympics. In September 1988, the stage was set for the Seoul Olympics. The Olympic theme song, Hand in Hand, by the band KOREAZ, signaled the beginning of the Games. Athletes from 159 countries competed in impressive events, with Korea achieving a remarkable 4th place overall, winning 12 gold, 10 silver and 11 bronze medals. The Seoul Olympics fundamentally transformed the image of Korea from an unknown country to a country which can afford to host the Olympics, and from a war-torn country to a country that achieved marvelous development. Following the Olympics, then President Roh Tae-woo gave a speech at the United Nations General Assembly in October 1988, and Korea became a member state of the UN in September 1991. The 1988 Seoul Olympics was particularly notable for the participation of the US, the Soviet Union, and East Germany, which had not competed together since the 1976 Montreal Olympics due to political reasons. This event was seen as a platform for East-West reconciliation during the Cold War era. Next, in 2002, another major international sports event captured global attention. The World Cup, a festival for football lovers. For Koreans, 2002 is synonymous with the World Cup. The Korean national team's historic advance to the semi-finals and the large-scale street cheering by the Red Devils are still fondly remembered. The popularity of the 2002 World Cup was evident, with the first match against Poland achieving over 70% viewership in Korea. The 2002 Korea-Japan World Cup made history as it was the first case of co-hosting, and it was the first World Cup held in Asia. Given the history issues, how did Korea and Japan come to co-host the event? Both Korea and Japan initially aimed to host the World Cup on their own. A fierce bidding war ensued between the two countries, driven by national pride. What turned the tide of the bidding competition was a suggestion from Peter Verlappen, the then Secretary General of the Asian Football Confederation. He said, "It would be good for Korea and Japan to co-host the 2002 World Cup." His proposal for co-hosting was unexpected and had no precedent in World Cup history. However, eventually, the two countries decided to open the door to cooperation. Co-host. It was the moment when the 2002 Korea-Japan World Cup was confirmed, the first case of a co-hosted World Cup. To be fair, the opening ceremony and first match were held in Korea, while the final and closing ceremony took place in Japan. Matches were evenly distributed between 10 cities in each country. The 2002 Korea-Japan World Cup marked a new chapter in bilateral relationships between the two countries and brought changes in mutual understanding and mutual perception. The 2002 World Cup also significantly raised Korea's international profile. The Korean national team's impressive performance and the passionate cheerleading culture from Korean fans caught the world's attention, naturally elevating Korea's reputation. We can't discuss sports diplomacy without mentioning sports stars. Since the late 1990s, Korea has produced world-class athletes such as Park Se-ri, Park Chan-ho, Park Ji-sung, Kim Yeon-ah, Yoo Hyun-jin, Son Heung-min, and Kim Ha-sung. These athletes represent their country, and their country also gains a higher global profile. With the hosting of the Olympics and the World Cup, and the remarkable performances of its sports stars, Korea made a brilliant leap forward with sports diplomacy. This growth culminated in the 2018 PyeongChang Winter Olympics. The PyeongChang Winter Olympics was the second Olympics held in Korea, 30 years after the 1988 Seoul Summer Olympics. After its bids in 2003 and 2007 were in vain, it finally won the bid in 2011 on its third attempt. Thanks to diplomatic efforts, economic strength, and the heartfelt wishes of its people. The opening and closing ceremonies of the PyeongChang Olympics were particularly noteworthy. Performances by CL and EXO showcased the status of Hallyu, the Korean wave. The Cheonsang Yeolcha Bunyeoljido, a cultural heritage of Korea, was rendered in the sky over PyeongChang using augmented reality technology. These elements vividly highlighted Korea's growth as a cultural powerhouse. Korean athletes also did an excellent job, winning medals in the skeleton, bobsleigh, snowboarding and curling for the first time in Korean history. With the PyeongChang Olympics, Korea joined the ranks of countries that have hosted the Summer Olympics, the Winter Olympics and the World Cup. Today, we've explored Korea's sports diplomacy history. Sports have often served as a beacon to introduce Korea to the world, bridge gaps between countries, and enhance the country's reputation. We look forward to seeing how Korea's sports diplomacy will unfold, and we hope the Korean team performs well at the upcoming Paris Olympics. That's all I have for you today. I'll return with more interesting stories about Korea's foreign policy next time. Bye.